Welcome to the Ambitious Introvert Podcast, created especially for introverts, empaths, and highly sensitive entrepreneurs to help you build, grow, and scale a successful, sustainable business. I'm your host, Emma-Louise Parks, business and mindset coach for ambitious introverts. After 17 years working as an air traffic controller, the ultimate fast-paced, high-stimulus, extrovert-friendly role, my mission now is to show introverts that they too can create big results and success because of who they are, not in spite of it. I focus on introvert-friendly business and marketing strategy to help you switch overwhelm for clarity, confidence, and clients. Hello friends, welcome back to the Ambitious Introvert Podcast with me, Emma-Louise. And today my guest is the gorgeous Ellie Swift. Now, Ellie and I have been in each other's orbits for quite a long time, and we had never actually seen each other face to face on Zoom, obviously, until we recorded this episode, which was so lovely. So I had invited Ellie to take part in the Set to Scale bundle last year. It didn't work with some of the commitments. We had some voice notes back and forth. We've got so many connections in common and like crossover within the industry, and we had just never actually aligned. Ellie is in Western Australia. I'm here in the UK. The time zone can be a challenge. So it was so lovely to actually finally connect with her in person, and it was like chatting to an old friend. So Ellie's a business coach and mastermind mentor, and she works with high-performing women who are ready to build soul-led, intentional, and profitable online businesses. Now, Ellie's background is in marketing, and she has her signature method, which is the Swift marketing method. And she works with people like coaches, creatives, consultants, and helps them to literally shine online. And the reason that I wanted Ellie on the podcast, as well as the fact that she's just lovely and amazing, was to talk about the mastermind model that she has adopted in her business. Because any of you that know me quite well know that I was quite reluctant to do group programs. I, very much believe in the power of one-on-one. And I think that as an introvert, the idea of running a group sometimes can feel a little bit intimidating. And so Ellie's entire business model now is based on masterminds. So I thought it would be great to bring on another introvert who is really successfully doing this, so she could give us, the fact behind the scenes of it. And it's a great conversation because Ellie's so open about her journey and so open in sharing, some really helpful bits of information, but also in sharing the thought process. And one of the things that I would encourage you to take away from this episode is that there's a lot that Ellie didn't know as she pivoted her business. There are a lot of things she didn't have information about, and she actually turned this around in some cases to be a positive thing because she didn't have any preconceived ideas. So if you do have a tendency to think, I need to know every single thing before I can get going, or I don't want to figure it out along the way, I want to get it perfect before I even start, this is going to be a hugely permission-giving episode. So let's get on to the interview with the lovely Ellie Swift. Oh, Ellie, I'm so happy to finally chat to you because I feel like we've kind of crossed paths and known each other online for ages. And this is the first time we've actually been face-to-face.
I know, likewise. Thank you so much for having me. It's very exciting to be here. And yeah, like you say, mutual friends, feels like we've chatted before.
Well, I particularly resonate very much with your business and your whole story regarding group programs and masterminds because I've been such a sensitive introvert who adores one-on-one, and I still do, and it's still a big part of my business. And obviously, I saw your live stream with Lacey, which I talked about in the intro. And I just thought this is so important to share because it's so easy for us to get stuck in doing something one way and think that's the only way it's ever going to be. And what I love about your story is the very small progressions. Like you didn't start the business going, I'm going to build 3 masterminds and make $1 million.
100%. In fact, I actually never thought that I was going to have $1 million business. I started my business thinking if I could make 6 figures, that would be absolutely amazing. And so I started the business and was working in one-to-one initially, and then it all kind of skyrocketed from there.
So what was your profession when you started the business? Because I know you talked about being part-time in it for a little while before you went full-time. So what was going on for you? What were the first services that you offered as a coach?
So I worked in marketing before I started my business, and I've got that past story that I know so many of your people will probably resonate with, which is worked in corporate, built up, got the job that I always thought that I wanted, hit the goal that I'd had since I was, since university, got there, head of marketing, and went, why am I so depressed? Like, why does none of this feel like I thought it would? So I knew at that time that I really loved marketing. That was something that I loved. I loved my relationships with my clients. I just didn't love the political landscape of being in corporate. So what I thought was going to be the thing that I would do is I thought that I'd start coaching on the side at the time. So I actually went and studied life coaching. And then I started doing life coaching on the side. But problem with that was that as I started life coaching, I was quickly attracting small business owners who were like, yeah, like great advice, love this, you're amazing, etc. But also like, what about the business? Like, can you support us with my business? Because we know you have all this like marketing expertise. And I think it's also really useful to talk about that as well, because what I'm about to say next is that my business grew really quickly. And obviously there was a lot of that came from having all this marketing experience as well. So I transitioned into full-time really quickly. I built my business up to fully booked one-to-one within the first year. And then from there hit this point, a year or 2 years later where I was like, okay, I'm starting to reach like capacity here. And I don't know what beyond that looks like. I think at my max, I was working with like 27 clients one-to-one.
Wow.
It's a lot, right?
Oh my gosh. No wonder you were nearly burning out.
Right. And so at the time I was like always have been, and I know you would be the same just from this time that we've talked together, like strong values around service and showing up for my people and really giving my all. And I knew that I had my wait list was growing and growing and growing. And I was like, I need to do something about this because I know that I know that I want to serve more people. B, I know that I'm having the same conversation day in, day out. Got to be a smarter way for me to do this. And C, I was like, I don't really feel like one-to-one is for me long term. So I'm also an introvert, very much on the ambivert side of things. But for me personally, I don't love sitting in conversation day in, day out at my computer. Like that's not something that's exciting to me. And so with that in mind, I started to look at, well, what are my other options here? What am I going to create in the business next?
I love it. And I love how it just naturally, progresses. And something that I know I did in the early days, and I've seen a lot of clients do, is on day one, they're trying to plan what's going to be happening in 3 years. And it's so hard to say, you got to let go of that. You've got to concentrate on what's next, because people are like, well, what if when I do this and then I get full and then I can do this course and then I can do this? And it's like, let's concentrate on your first client and then keep moving. But it is so easy, I think, especially in the online space, to get all of these ideas and inspiration, but get overwhelmed and then find the thing that you planned for is not what you wanted anyway.
Absolutely. I mean, you just don't have that information when you're first starting out. You can have the dreams and the goals and the visions. I certainly had manifestations of myself on a stage and speaking in front of a lot of people and being surrounded by lots of people and having a really big community and, in conversation with people who at the time I viewed as mentors and them seeing me as peers. Like I definitely had all of those visualizations. And so I think that it's really important to know that, exactly what you're saying is like you can manifest and you can decide that you're going to call in an amazing reality for yourself. And we then need to take 1,000 steps back to the present moment and go, well, what does business look like right now? What's the one next step that I need to take to get there? And be really, really open to the way that things are going to morph and shift along the way. I mean, as someone who now runs a mastermind model, which I know we'll get to, I don't even think I knew what a mastermind was when I first started my business. Like I truly don't think that it was actually a thing yet. In fact, as far as I know, I was one of the first people, if not the first person, to create an online mastermind in, where I live in Western Australia. And so it's so great because if I think about where I was at when I first started my business, and I've said to that woman now, like, this is actually what you're going to create, I would have been equal parts blown away, but also absolutely terrified. Like, I wasn't meant to know that at the time. So I just so hear you and agree with you on that, where it's like, follow the breadcrumbs, be open to creating a scalable model at some point, but you absolutely don't need to know what that looks like initially. And that openness is so key. Like, you might be like, all I want to do is one-to-one, but you get to play in the possibility and the expansion opportunities as you go, because you might really surprise yourself.
As we both have.
Exactly.
So I love, obviously you're very values-based, as I am. And I love that you identified, like, I don't want to be sat in front of a computer screen for 27 hours a week. And that's not what I want my life to be. But also seeing that you're very committed to your clients. What came up around the mindset of transitioning towards the mastermind? Like, when you were planning out to launch the first iteration of it, what kind of stuff was coming up for you around that?
Totally. So initially for me, I really had to hold this energy of like, okay, do I trust myself that I can create as much value as I'm creating right now for my clients one-to-one? And so at the time when I was starting the mastermind, I actually myself had never been in a mastermind before, which probably sounds wild to so many of you that are listening, but it actually served me so, so much, because what I knew when I thought about the term mastermind, it was almost just like Disneyland for me, of like all the possibility and the types of things that you could create. But because I'd never been in one, I didn't have any limitations around, oh, that doesn't really work, or you kind of can't do it that way. It just made me so expanded in my thinking of like, I can create something that's just going to be so amazing, and I'm just going to make it so that I provide so much value in this experience. And again, the season of business that I was in, I wasn't thinking at the time, like, how can I make it so I don't spend too many hours in the business? I was working one-to-one with 27 clients. Like, I was so focused on value. And in fact, this is my top recommendation for anyone starting a mastermind, is to really ask yourself that question of, how can I create something, A, that's going to support my clients to get amazing results, and B, something that is so incredibly valuable. And so that was something that definitely supported me, is looking at it through that lens. But the biggest challenges were things like, can I support my clients to get as good results as the results that I'm helping them get one-to-one? I don't have the evidence around that yet. And, again, for those of you listening, like, no one does. When you're creating anything new, you don't have the evidence. Like when you first started your business, you didn't have any evidence around it succeeding. The other thing was like, am I going to be able to hold this space of working in this group, knowing that I'm so good one-to-one, I can see people, especially again, really identifying as an introvert myself. Like, I know that I can read people so well one-to-one. Am I going to be able to do that in a group? I pick up on everyone's energy. I identify as being highly sensitive, like all of those factors that I know, would be so relevant for your people as well. And all of that's going to come up. But the thing that really supported me there was, I knew I had two choices. The first is that I could allow those mindset challenges to really envelope me and suffocate me and stop me from taking that leap. Or I could decide instead that I was going to make it work because I wanted it to. And really, that's what I did. I was like, I'm going to make this work. I believe in this model based on everything that I've seen. I'm going to make it mine. I'm going to make it my own. I'm going to make it an exceptional experience. And I trust myself, that I can help my clients to get those amazing results. And like, newsflash from, a few years ahead, it's better. Like for me, the results that I've created for supported my clients to create in masterminds versus one-to-one, they are infinitely better than what they've been able to create one-to-one, because being in that group space, being with other people who are further along than you or doing things differently to you, like the expansion that you experience from that type of dynamic is just insane and like nothing else. So that, yeah, I'm going all over the place here and getting carried away. But basically, I think I've answered your question there. Like those are the big mindset things that I moved through.
It's okay. I love the excitement. It's very good. Let it flow.
To say.
And I love the way you frame that, because I think there's a lot of like toxic positivity out there of, you know, just think positive and don't ever have any bad thoughts. But of course, we do have bad thoughts because we're a human, but we can ignore them. We can acknowledge them, like you say, and go, okay, all this stuff's coming up, but I'm going to choose to actually decide that I'm just going to do it anyway.
Yes, exactly right. Exactly right. And not make yourself wrong for having those thoughts. I think that so often we can allow them to, you know, like I was saying, like envelope us and really go, oh, well, if I'm experiencing and thinking this, then it must mean that it's wrong and I shouldn't do it. But actually, if you have A, decided, and B, feel like you're being guided in any way towards that, then I invite you to go for it, knowing that what's the worst that can happen? You go back and do one-to-one, or you go back to the type of, you know, business or coaching or whatever it was that you were doing previously. Like giving these things a chance and an opportunity is incredible and might just be the thing that takes you to your next level of business.
Totally. I was very similar to you, as I was saying earlier, because I, you know, done exclusively one-on-one and come from, you know, a background of coaching people in corporate, which is very different to online. Yeah. And when I was fully booked with one-on-one, and Lacey kept saying, are you going to start a group? Are you going to start a group? And I was like, and kind of like skirting around it. And eventually it came to, I was like, I'm just waiting for it to pop in. And I said, oh, I'm going to start a mastermind, because a group felt very much like I had to create a curriculum and lessons and all of, and where I was in business, I didn't have the support, you know, I didn't feel confident in doing that. But a mastermind where I felt like I can bring people together and hold space and they can kind of collaborate and help each other, that felt really good. So I said to Lisa, I'm going to do a mastermind. She was like, okay, great. I said, I'm going to keep it really small. I'm just going to have like 3 people so that I can dip my toe and get, she was like, okay. And I sent 1 email to my list and 10 people applied. And I went, oh, okay. So this is popular. So I ran 2 pods of it and concurrently. And then, yeah, I've run it twice since. I did a little peer mastermind before as like a little practice. I'd invited some friends. Yes. And then, but all of that evidence built up to show me like, oh, this is really powerful. This is actually bringing people together in a group. Is the energetics of it is different. And definitely some of those people had bad experiences in groups, or they were a bit worried about what the other people would be like. But over and above, the feedback that I got is like that the people added to the experience and they made great friends and they learned things. And, you know, so-and-so was their ideal client and they did market research and it was really helpful. And so-and-so, like you say, was doing something slightly differently and it really expanded them. So I think that it's a model that until you've stepped inside it, either as a facilitator running it or as a person, you know, joining the mastermind, it can seem a little bit like you say, like, oh, I've got no preconception of this. But I completely agree with everything you said. I think it's such a powerful model.
Totally. You know, it's really interesting because the biggest objections that I usually get are, I don't know about the group, especially for my clients who are earlier stages of business. Like, I don't know about the group. I don't know about the group dynamic. I don't know how it's going to work with me being in a group. And then the feedback that I get at the end, without fail, is always the group calls my favorite. Like everything about the group was my favorite part, which is just so interesting because it just goes to show like, you know, a lot of the time that is just the fear talking. But when you are in that group dynamic, it's just so expansive. And the opportunity of stepping outside of your comfort zone in that way and being seen by people and hearing from other people in different models of business is just mind blowing.
So how quickly after that very first cohort did you realize, okay, this is the thing, this is where I'm going all in?
It's an interesting question. I've actually not been asked that before. I think I knew straight away that it was something that I loved and that I wanted to continue focusing on. The move to my whole business being a like 7-figure mastermind model was something that happened very organically based on like client demand, essentially. So I finished the first round of Swift Mind, or it used to be called the Swift Marketing Mastermind, and got to the end. And as we were in like the final month, I remember going, shit, what do I do now? Like, what am I going to do with these people who are asking me, like, what's next? And so I created an inner circle experience, which was essentially like an up level from that initial experience that they could then go into afterwards. And so that was based on people asking, like, what do we do at the end of this? What does that look like? And so created that experience from there. And then I had the 2 masterminds and I was running them and I absolutely loved that. And then the year before last, I was starting to feel that there was a bit of a gap in the middle that I needed to fill, because the inner circle was really expanding to be people who were more like, multi 6 figures in their business. And Swift Mind was very much still people scaling to 10K. And I really needed that bit, or 10K months rather. And I really needed that piece in the middle. And so in answer to your question, I would say that I actually never really had that moment where it was like, I'm intentionally going all in on this model, but rather I was in the experience. I loved the experience and I allowed myself to be guided by what my clients were desiring and what it was that was A, going to serve them, and B, also going to serve me. I often talk about, this Venn diagram where, for those of you listening, obviously you can't see my hands right now, but if you pull a Venn diagram, you've got the circle that's you and then the circle that's your client, and you overlap those. Like, what's that sweet spot in the middle there that is the business that you want to run and the model that's most going to support your client to get the result that they want? Because that sweet spot in the middle there is the thing that you want to go after and you want to stick with, and you want to like stay in that for the life of your business. And that'll be the thing that makes you pivot and shift and change as you go. Like, that's the thing to focus on. And a lot of people miss that as the key factor. They're either going, how do I create the life that I want that serves me? Or they're looking at it too much the other way. Like, how can I just go over and above to support my client with every whim, need, whatever it is that they want? But actually it's that sweet spot that's key. So I kept following that until I quite literally last year got to a point where I was like, wow, my whole business is a mastermind model. The conversations that I'm having with my team every day and the like quote unquote problems that we're solving every day are all related to this business of 3 different masterminds. That is our sole business model. And the things that we are navigating through that model are so specific because they're all related to holding people, launching masterminds, selling masterminds, payment stuff with people in masterminds, navigating difficult conversations. They're also specific to that. And I think in a time right now when the online space has really shifted. Like, we're not looking at a space anymore where you can just jump online, sell any old thing and fill it up. And I think that's such a great thing.
Thank goodness. I was thinking as you said it. Yeah,
exactly. It's such a great thing because it means people like your people who are listening right now, who are values-led humans creating exceptional experiences, like, they're the ones that get to shine. And so I feel very, very passionate about supporting people to create best practice masterminds, because there is a way to create a best practice experience. There are too many people having bad experiences in masterminds and group programs. And, if you're somebody who is looking to start a mastermind or facilitate one, or that's the same thing, you might be like, well, what do I do? Like, how do I create that? And so knowing, there's an opportunity to create something that's best practice and serves and supports the needs of your clients, I think is key, because no one's been talking about that to this point.
I think the online space can be, like you say, a little bit one extreme or the next, of people that are very good at marketing and selling. And it's like, get good at marketing and selling, and then you can have a 10K month. But also a lot of people that are very much like, I want to serve people really well and go over and above, and I feel icky about selling or charging, but I want to change the world, and which is obviously great and lovely, but not particularly sustainable from an energetic point of view. But, the former not being sustainable because once they've had 10 people through their program who haven't got results because they're very good at marketing and selling. So yeah, it's absolutely that sweet spot of like, how can you deliver? How can you just deliver in a way that feels good to you and gives people what they need?
100% agree.
So you touched on team there. And something you mentioned when you were chatting to Lacey is your team is really quite lean for the size of the business. And I think I know this is something I've had clients that are scaling come across when they get to a certain point. They go, but if I grow much more, I'm going to need to manage a team. I'm going to need this huge team. I'm going to need to actually employ people and all these like, scary things. But like you say, you're running these 3 masterminds and your team is pretty small.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just for some context there. So I've got 2 support coaches in my masterminds. I've also got an online business manager, a virtual assistant. I, up until very recently, also had a content team of 2 people, but made the decision that I wanted to focus more on ads budget this year for our marketing budget. And so made the very, very difficult decision to let my content team go. Hardest decision I've ever had to make in my business. And so, yes, very, very lean team, lean but mighty.
I love that.
So I've got incredible women that work in the team with me. My virtual assistant's been with me for 4 years. So she actually, my online business manager rather, she actually started with me the week before we kicked off the very first mastermind. Nivek Harrison, she owns an agency called The Virtual Chapter. So if anyone's listening and they want, incredible online business manager or VA, she has an amazing award-winning agency that she's scaled. And so she started with me. We were both, younger, earlier in business, green. And I said to her, I'm starting this mastermind in a week. It's like fully sold out with past clients. Like, are you with me on this? We're about to create something amazing. And she was like, I'm with you. I'm going to learn along the way. I'm going to work this out. And we've really grown together and learned together. And I'm just so grateful that I have that partnership with her in terms of our relationship of somebody who she's grown her business, I've grown mine. And gratefully, as fate would have it, they've grown alongside one another. Wow. So I definitely credit her support as part of me building what I've built. That said, for anyone that's listening, if you're making yourself wrong because you're like, oh, well, I don't have that, so I couldn't create a mastermind, I'm definitely not saying that. What I am saying is that the key piece is looking at who are the right people that I need to support me on this journey. So for me, when I first started, I didn't have any support coaches initially. It was just me. And I specifically focused on, as part of the delivery of the experience, making sure that we had really, really great systems in the back end so that we had really incredible onboarding experience, that our processes were on point. So people always knew when calls were, where to show up, communication channels, all of those things that are so key. We have a thing within our business of one of our values is like communicate. And when in doubt, like over communicate. And it's really serves us with clients, because what I find is that if anyone ever drops off in a mastermind, it's usually because they've missed information or misheard something, or like they'll start to withdraw. So we really focused on delivery a whole bunch. And then from there, over the years, we've brought in a virtual assistant. I've brought in support coaches, one of which is also Nivek, my business manager. And it's just grown from there. But ultimately, we're just so clear on, this is what the model looks like. This is what the business looks like. This is what support looks like. And we show up in that way. So yeah, small but mighty team. You don't need a massive team to run a model like this.
What I love about so much of what you said today, and I think I would like anyone listening to take away, even if they don't want to run a mastermind, but what they could take away from it is that you've gone into all of these things with no preconceived ideas. Like you say, I've never been in a mastermind, so I don't really know what one looks like. And then you're like, oh, I've just launched one and I filled it up. So now I'm going to get an online business manager, and she's never done one either. And we're going to like make it work and go with it. And I think, I don't want to call that scrappy action, because I don't think that's necessarily the right term, but you didn't have all of the knowledge. You didn't have everything planned out. It wasn't perfectly, all mapped out for the next 6 months or something, but you were still able to do it and do it really well and profitably and create a great experience for the people in it.
It's so true. It's that thing of like, if we want to grow in business, we really need to take messy action. I'm a Virgo, so I hate mess. And I say to my clients all the time, like, if you want to scale, your business is going to get messy. And the aim is not actually to run along behind yourself and clean it up. The aim is to let it be messy, because when it's messy, that's a sign that it's growing.
I'm a Virgo moon and I'm Virgo stellium in my chart. So I've got it's in 4 of the houses, 4 or 5, I think. So I'm a Pisces, but I'm very Virgo, and I definitely see that because I'm very organized and I like things to be streamlined and tidy.
Yes, makes sense. So it was just your birthday recently.
It was 2nd of March.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. So I know that you've got some great resources sharing a lot more about this. And obviously you've got all of these years of experience of growing and scaling these amazing group programs. So where can people find out more information about that and about the masterminds themselves?
Amazing. Thank you for asking that. So at the time that I know this podcast is being released, I've just launched something called the Mastermind model, which I'm so excited about because, like I said, over the last 4 years, I've created this mastermind model, and so much of my knowledge around that has been conversations that I've been having behind the scenes with team. And I thought it was about time that I really brought how to create, sell, deliver a mastermind experience to the fore, package it together and share it, because I know so much of what people want to know when they're creating masterminds is how do I create something that is best practice, and how do I create a mastermind experience that's going to help my clients get results? What does that actually look like? So this program is designed to support you with all of that. I'm so excited to share it. It's available right now. If you're listening to this, I will be sharing it over on my Instagram account, Ellie H. Swift. You can also join my Facebook group, Shine Online with Ellie Swift.
Beautiful. And put all of those links in the show notes so everyone can connect with you. And I am excited for your program. I'm excited for people to hear this because I know a lot of people want to have more impact and they want to create more revenue and they want to create more space in their business. But I know that anyone that's listening to this podcast wants to do it in a very authentic way and in a way that still serves people. So I think that what you're sharing is absolutely perfect.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that.
Now, before I let you go, I'm going to ask you 2 questions that I ask every guest. Ellie doesn't know these. She's going for the surprise aspect. So firstly, which book would you recommend to anyone listening that is looking to either start, grow, or scale their online business?
Oh, to start, grow, or scale it. Okay. There are just so many. I'm like, how do I choose one? I'm going to go with Rachel Rodgers' We Shall Be Millionaires.
Great book.
Because it is the thing that's going to give you the ammunition that you need in the early stages of your business.
I love that. I read that. Yeah, I was quite early in my business. I read it during the pandemic, not long after it came out. Perfect. I'll pop that in the show notes. And lastly, what is the biggest belief that you've had to adopt, or the biggest shift or reframe in your mindset that you've had to take to get to where you are today?
That it's absolutely possible for me to be a millionaire and somebody that can make a lot of money, even though I had no evidence in my lineage that it was possible.
That's that. I got goosebumps when you said millionaire. So book recommendation and belief shift all around that term. Perfect. Ellie, it's been such a pleasure to finally chat to you. And thank you so much for coming and sharing all of your mastermind goodness.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope that it's so valuable for your listeners. I've loved being here with you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ambitious Introvert Podcast with me, Emma-Louise Parks. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on iTunes. As a thank you, one lucky reviewer each month will win a 60-minute one-on-one coaching session with me, where you'll get the clarity and confidence to attract your ideal clients. And if you know someone who could benefit from listening to the show, then please do share and help me reach as many fellow ambitious introverts as possible.